Hey, what's shaking, guys? Just doing a video going over an awesome healing story and it's actually a carnivore healing story. So somebody that used the carnivore diet to heal themselves. And the chick's name is Mikhaila Peterson. And I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but her dad's pretty famous on YouTube these days, a guy named Jordan Peterson. So she was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease from a young age. So it was like her life was like full of pain and full of operations. And you know what? I'll play a little bit here so you guys can hear just a general outline of her experience.
I'll give a really quick overview here. I was basically sick, very sick since I was born. I was born through a C-section. I got a strep infection before the age of 1.5. I was put on antibiotics. I got thrush really badly after that. When I started walking, I was limping like when I started walking. So I had arthritic symptoms literally at like 16 months. I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis at age 7, put on naproxen, Enbrel, methotrexate, immune suppressants, got cortisone injections, I was basically in a wheelchair in grade 2. The Enbrel and methotrexate helped, and the cortisone injections helped, and I was able to have, honestly, had a pretty good time as a kid. I was diagnosed with chronic depression. When I was in grade 5, I was put on antidepressants. It just tapered up till I was 23. When I was 14, I started getting itchy. Really itchy, like mosquito bites all over my legs, but nothing visible itchy. And I got really tired, but I thought it was a teenage thing. When I was 17, I got my hip and ankle replaced.
So I'm not going to go through this entire section, but for anybody that suffers from an autoimmune disease, right from the beginning, she's talking about symptoms that are very, very familiar to people with whether it's gut diseases or just autoimmune disease in general, and things that are very common. So people being born of C-section, people going on antibiotics, then going on immunosuppressants, and the path that she's taken. So you can see that she's lived a life that's been full of a lot of suffering. Then what ends up happening is that she decides to she goes through a bunch of approaches, and you guys should watch her video. Her video gives a lot more detailed explanation into her life. I just want to share a general outline of this video and just how powerful it really is. So she ended up trying the carnivore diet, and in her version, to be more specific, she did the all beef diet. So the only beef approach changed her life. She feels good. The pain is gone. She has more energy than ever. She's got reduced body fat. She shows you in this video what she looks like at the end, and the girl looks great. She also explains how her depression's lifted. It's also helped her dad with depression. She also talks about, in the video, she talks about her mom who started the diet. So both her mom and her dad have used the diet and it's improved their symptoms. But she talks specifically about her mom, and she talks about how her mom suffered from colitis and her symptoms went away. And I'll go to that right now, and I believe it was about there.
Her gut problems seem to have gone away. She had diverticulitis, and she had a colonoscopy this year, and it's gone. That's not supposed to happen. This seems to be working for people. I don't really know what to think about it.
Getting back to that, guys, that's something pretty crazy, that an all-meat carnivore diet is helping people overcome their IBDs or autoimmune diseases in general. And I think it's pretty fascinating to see how it can change somebody's life. And I'm showing you guys this video because regardless of what autoimmune disease you have, the symptoms are very, very familiar. It could be skin problems, joint problems, gut issues, gluten issues. It almost seems like, if you guys are noticing, that although we label it differently, so we might label the primary symptoms differently because they manifest differently. So let's say you hear arthritis, you hear rheumatoid arthritis, you hear ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, lupus, MS, and so on. What it really comes down to is it comes down to leaky gut syndrome and a systemic candida infection due to bad diet antibiotics, unbalanced microbiome. That could come from having from antibiotics from a young age, or it can come from being compromised from the shoot, so not getting bacteria, being born of C-section. You know, she also talks about how hard it was. She talks about how hard it was to get rid of the sugar. And for anybody with an IBD, we all know that it's super hard to get off the sugar.
More carbs. I got rid of the sweet potatoes. I got rid of the parsnips. I got rid of the apples. I went down to meat and greens, and that was hard. Getting off of the sugar, even just cutting out the apples and getting rid of the last fruit, was hard. It was amazingly difficult for just cutting out the little sugar I had left. And that helped, but I was still having these autoimmune symptoms. And I was like, maybe it's the pregnancy.
You know, and she talks about how hard it is, and it is very hard. But most people think that they're dropping these things when they're still left in their diet. And they do have to drop it and significantly drop it for a long period of time. And that's what this all beef, this carnivore diet, or ketogenic diets, that's what they accomplish, is they do that. They reduce the carbohydrates for long periods of time. And when it comes down to it, when you remove foods that feed candida, your symptoms start to reverse and you start to heal. You know, if you guys are in a situation where you're very frustrated with your autoimmune disease, just give you guys a heads up. I have a free guide. You can access it in the description. There's no catches, no gimmicks. I'm sharing this because I know what it's like to suffer from multiple autoimmune diseases. And I have suffered from Crohn's disease, colitis, rheumatoid arthritis. You know, but getting back to the carnivore diet, you know, is it the only diet that you can heal from? No. And if you're watching this, you got to consider that the carnivore diet might work because of what it removes versus what it adds. You know, it does add a lot of healthy fat, and it's healthy fat. If you were just to eat chicken, you wouldn't get the same effect. It's healthy fat. So the fatness that's coming with that ground beef that gives you energy, that helps you heal, that makes you feel well, and the removal of all the other stuff, the toxic foods that you'd usually eat. And people are healing using a carnivore diet regardless if the beef is organic or not, because it shows you it's decreasing the toxic burden substantially, that even if they're eating factory farmed beef, they're still getting better. They're still healing. You know, so it's definitely something to consider. But I gotta say, like Mikhaila Peterson, she did such a good job in this video. Her self-reflection was awesome. Just telling you about the symptoms and sort of keeping track of things along the way. I encourage you guys to check out this video. Show her some love, guys. She really did an awesome job. She also has a blog. You can access the information. I put information in the description. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is the Beating Your Autoimmune Disease, Healing Your Gut, you name it.
Are you tired of feeling crappy? Get my free healing guide. Tips, tweaks, and hacks. Click the description for more information.